In this series of videos, I'm going to be modeling an animal character, texturing it, rigging it, and animating it. In this first video, I'll cover the modeling process in order to model with good topology so that I'm able to then rig correctly and it'll make the entire pipeline easier. So to get started, I have a blank project here in Maya Open. Let me go to my modeling menu set here, and the first thing I'm going to do is set my project. So I've already created in my documents folder here a folder that I'm going to set as my project folder. And if it's the first time setting that project folder, you'll get a dialog box that then says set default workspace. So click that. And then I've also already set all the project windows. So that is why I have here in my project folder all of these folders as well. So we'll need all of these folders. In my source image folder, I have some source images that I'm going to use as reference when I model. I've chosen a rhinoceros to model today because it is my favorite animal and I'm looking forward to making this. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is create some free image planes, create free image plane. And I have 3 reference images, so I'm going to create 3 image planes. One of them I'm going to rotate so that this will be my front view. And then I have 2 side views. So in my attribute editor here for these image planes, I have my image name here. I can go ahead and set these side views. One, the legs are straight, one, but the head's down, the other, the head is up. Let me scale this down. And if you're unfamiliar with the hotkeys of Maya or some of the basics of Maya, I would start with a different video. So here we have these 2. I'm going to kind of make them the same size. This one I have the kind of head in an upright position, but the legs are already moving. This has the legs kind of straight down. So this is why I chose both of these images. And then I'll use this one as my front view. Okay, and I'm going to scale this one up so that they all are relatively the same size. When I go to model, it'll make it easier. And I'm going to move these all kind of back in the space. So whenever I model something, I am going to start with a cube. And I always start with a cube because it's the most simple polygon shape. And it will allow me to really keep all of my divisions and all of the topology really clean and just what I need, just what's necessary. So I'm going to just move maybe, let's say, this view I'll put kind of in the center here. And let's get started. I can also work in my maybe front orthographic view to begin. And I believe I want to scale this down a bit. I also believe I'm going to put these 3 image planes here in my channel box, my display layer. Let me make a display with these selected in my outliner here. I'm going to create a display layer and I'm going to turn this on restricted. That way I can't click on it in the scene because I just want to be able to click on my model itself. One of my favorite tools is the Insert Edge Loop tool. This allows me to add edge loops to my model. And let me also make sure here that I have my tool settings nested right next to my outliner. And let's get started. I'm going to first put in a couple edge loops, and then I'm going to scale those loops up a bit. Q for select, R for scale. And I'm just going to begin by putting in edge loops that will start to frame the beginning of this model. I'm going to go to my perspective view now. And one of the most important things for me to do, oop, let me go back here because it looks as if I accidentally scaled just one edge there. I want to make sure when I am selecting an edge loop that I'm selecting the full loop, and then I can make my adjustments. And it's a bit easier to put in these edge loops from a perspective view than it is from that orthographic view. Again, the orthographic views are the 2D views that are showing us, in this case, the X and the Y coordinates, and the side is the Y and the Z, and then the top would be the Z and the X. And so it flattens it out so you can really use those reference images. And so the next thing I'm gonna do is set my edge loop tool here to multiple edge loops and turn this down to just one edge loop. This will allow me, with use equal multiplier turned on, this will allow me to put an edge loop right in the center. And it's really important that I do that so that I have a kind of symmetry. Now I can work with symmetry across this model. So I'm going to do that by turning on symmetry, and I'm going to have symmetry in the Z in this case. So I'm going to say object Z or world Z is fine because we're in the world space. And so now when I select one edge, it's going to select the edge on the other opposite side. So I'm going to go in, and knowing that, now I can kind of bulk out this frame a bit. I do want to be careful when I'm selecting multiple components with the move tool on, which I've just done. If I've selected here and then I go to shift select here, sometimes that can accidentally extrude that component. So we just want to be careful. And I always think a good practice is I just hit the hotkey Q to be working in the select tool when I'm actually selecting things. I'm going to click and work in vertex mode now, and I'm not going to give any definition to this model that is more than necessary at this stage. This is really important, to be working in a fashion that just adds complexity where it is required for that time, and then you can continue to add more complexity. And this is just to keep keep the amount of faces and edges and vertices down so that we can make kind of broad changes to the model at an early stage. And we want to keep it pretty low poly. And I think I'll speed up this video while I go ahead and make my changes. If I use a new tool, I will slow it back down and show you what that tool is. But right now I'm just kind of working in vertice mode, edge mode, and moving and scaling these different components. Okay, now at this point, I think I'm going to go to face mode and show you a new tool. I'm going to select these faces here, and I'm going to go to my modeling toolkit. I'm going to use extrude. When I click this, a window will pop up. I'm going to turn keep faces together off right now because what I'm going to do is extrude out some legs. When I'm done, I can hit Q, go back to select. Okay, this is a handy thing to do as well. I'm going to go to my vertices, and I want to flatten all of the ends of these legs out. So with my vertice component selected, I'm going to shift select around all of those vertices. And then if I scale them in the Y, they will all kind of flatten out and even out. Now what I can do is, and this might be premature, but I'll do it now anyway. I'm going to move this pivot point. Now that I know where the feet are, I'm going to say snap to point and hit the D key, and I'm going to move this and edit this pivot and have it be at the base of these feet. Let's go snap to grid now and put it back in the center of my character, and then hit D again so it's set that and locked it. And now make sure I'm doing this in object mode, which would be helpful. Let's try this again. Let's go back to snap to point and drop it at the base. Turn off snap to grid. So snap to point, it's kind of in the center of this model. Hit D again, and now snap to grid, and we will move this character up to the grid. So it's placed on the grid. We just still want to make sure that it's positioned in the center of the scene. I think I'd like maybe the center of the model for now to be, I hit D again, to be maybe, let's put snap to point here again. Let's pull it back to this midline, hit D, and then snap to grid and move it to the center of the grid. And I'll just keep modeling. Another handy thing, that handy tool we can use is, right now we're in, I'm going to go to my object mode here. And I'm in one mode, which is showing me the true topology of this model, but I can hit 3 and this will give me a kind of smooth preview. So I can preview what this model would look like if I smooth it. I can still actually model this way as well. It will allow me to select vertices and still make adjustments, and it will show me what that kind of smoothed model will look like. There's also 2, which is showing you that wireframe mode and the smooth preview at the same time. If I just smooth it now, just to show you at the end, in the very end process, I'll smooth, and then it will add a bunch of divisions and smooth out my model. I'm not going to do that quite yet. Don't forget you can double click on a component and that will select the edge. Like if I'm in edge mode, I can click on that component and just select those edges. Or sorry, select that whole edge loop. And right now I'm trying to anticipate where I'm going to want to put some of the facial features, particularly the horn and the eyes. So I believe the horn should go here. So I'm going to hit select and select these 4 faces, and I'm going to say extrude. This time I'm going to keep faces together on. I kind of want to create that horn shape. And then I'm going to immediately scale these down. Eventually, I'll want to merge these vertices together, but I want to wait to do that because I still want to be able to add edge loops. And if I do that, it won't know how to add edge loops if these faces are now tris instead of quads. Right now, they have 4 sides and 4 vertices, so the tool knows how to place additional edge loops. Another tool that I like to use is transform constraint, and to turn this onto edge slide. This means as I'm moving this component, see if it likes it or not, surface slide. Okay, I won't like it. So often what this does is it allows me, if I have this turned off, for example, here, I'm going to be moving this and it's going to change the shape and the form. If I have that turned on, it doesn't allow me, it allows me to move it along the surface or the edge that's already placed there. So here it probably just doesn't know where I want it to be moved, and so it won't let me. So I'll leave it normal here. But that's also a tool that I quite like. The other thing is currently I have my axis orientation in my tool settings for my move tool. I have it set to world. Sometimes it's helpful to change that to component. That might change the direction of the pivot, and my axis direction to be related to the components axes, or I could also do object, which again, you can see that maybe that would change the direction. World and object right now are the same. But if I had rotated this model in any way, they would be different. So sometimes if you want to be moving along a particular axis and you're having trouble kind of doing that, it might be helpful to change that axis orientation here in the tool settings. I'm just going to collapse that so I have more of a view of my model. If I select a face and then select a face next to it and double click, it will select that edge loop of faces. Might be a moment where I want to turn on that transform constraint to edge slide so that I'm sliding down this edge. I'm using that Y axis, but it won't let me draw that edge loop directly down in space. It's going to slide it along that edge. It looks like that horn wants to come down quite a bit. It feels like maybe this is that horn there, and we need the other horn a little bit lower. Okay, now I'm going to model the ears. So the ears look like they are maybe here. And then I'm going to extrude. I've been extruding up, but I'm going to extrude with the scale tool here and extrude in. And then I'm going to extrude again and extrude in. Let's define where the eyes are going to be. And always make sure, if I'm in this edge loop tool, I'd want to make sure that I go back to select so that I'm selecting the right components and not trying to add edge loops. So what I'm doing is I'm selecting a face that would where I'm gonna add more complexity and divisions and do kind of what I've done here to the ears. I'm gonna do where I decide to place the eye, which I think will be here. And what I'm doing is anticipating creating a eyelid rather than the eye itself so that I can in a later video go over facial deformations with blend shapes. I'm starting to kind of make maybe some kind of eyelid. I can always go ahead and check my smooth preview mode on this model. I think it's looking pretty good so far. I'm going to do the same thing with the nostrils, which are here. So I'm going to go back to my wireframe mode and just position those vertices where I'd like them to be for when I do the same kind of inner extrusion that I've done. I'm also going to kind of try to even out these faces. I've added a lot of divisions in order to make that eye do what I'd like it to do. And now I kind of still have, this is where, again, that edge slide can be helpful. I want to not necessarily change its shape. I just want to reposition these so that they have better edge flow, so that the faces are more equalized, across all of the faces, that they're more of the same size between them. So let's say, for example, I accidentally got off of this tool and I started making adjustments to this side of the face. And I think that I'm working with symmetry turned on, but I'm no longer working with symmetry turned on. Okay, so if I notice this now and I say, oh, and I've made a bunch of changes, what I'm going to want to do is use the mirror tool. So this is why it was so important to add that center line down the center, to add that line. Let me go to my channel box layer editor and turn off the visibility here for a moment, because I'm kind of looking at the back of this model. But it's so important that I have right in the center of my scene, and in the center of my model, I have this this line that is like the center line. And so in doing that, this was the side that I had continued working on, but it didn't get mirrored onto this side. So what I'll do is I'll go to face mode and I'm going to drag a marquee around all the faces as close to that center line as I can, and then I'm going to delete them. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to go back to my perspective view here. I'm going to go to object mode now, and I'm going to say mesh and mirror. And if I go to my mirror tool here, here are my mirror options. And so I'm looking at mirroring across the Z axis. So change this. Mirror axis position can be world because the center of my model is also the center of the world, and I can mirror this then in the positive Z. I want to say combine with original and merge border vertices and mirror. And I did something wrong. Try that again. Mesh, mirror, and we want to mirror in the negative, not the positive. So this indicator here is saying that Z positive is this way, Z negative is this way. So we want to mirror from Z positive to the negative value of Z. And now we have our model has symmetry again. And we can check this, right? Okay, so I might want to use another tool here, which is the multi-cut tool. And I'm going to use the multi-cut tool to connect these. It seems like I want an edge here, so I'm going to hit select for that. And then I'm just going to maybe want to change some of the topology a bit in the face. Now what I can do is go to edge mode here, and I've created these kind of tries here in order to create this mouth line. But I think I'm going to go ahead and delete these to get rid of those tries. Try being triangle, three-sided, the three-edge, three-vertice shape. And I don't want more than 4 ever. So I'm going to go ahead and delete these 2. And I'm going to use multi-cut tool again to cut from here to here. And delete this. So I do have 1 triangle there, but I think that's okay for now. This is now a 5-sided, so this is a problem. Another problem is that we've cut across the eye itself. So let me go back to whenever I made that adjustment. So that one I like, and then it was really here to here. And then go back to edge mode and see which edges I need to delete. Now, I've deleted that edge, but you see here that I still have a vertice. So selecting edges and deleting them is not the best way. What you'll want to do is select that edge and then go to Edit Mesh, Delete Edge Vertex, and that will also delete the vertice. So that's really important. Really how I want this to resolve itself is I don't really want these tries, so I'm gonna see if I can get rid of them. I'm still gonna end up having tries somewhere, so I'm just gonna maybe fix some of what I've done by using target weld to reconnect these vertices to each other. By repositioning these vertices, I'm rounding out the legs. This is really important so it doesn't look too boxy. I believe these have 4 toes. If I hit the F key, I can frame up whatever I have selected so that I am toggling, panning around that point and not some other random point in space. Let me also think about the mouth. Rhinos have a kind of lip. Now at this stage, I think that the face is a bit too wide. So in order to change that, I can select all the vertices here on one side of the face. I can try to select them all, or I can work with smooth selection turned on or soft selection. And in this case, instead of just moving this one vertice with soft selection turned on, and that's again under the tool settings of the move tool, I can set a radius around this point at which I am kind of almost sculpting, not necessarily, but it's going to affect all of the components around it with this kind of fall off of influence. So it'll allow me to select just one vertice and maybe make those broader changes that I want to the model overall. Maybe I want to turn that down even more. Soft selection will be on for any of your transform tools if you have it selected. Check our smooth shading and see how we're liking our model. I think now I'm just going to try to kind of fix some of these vertices so that they're better positioned, that the faces all have the same scale to them. It'll help me with texturing and with rigging later. Of course, we also have the tail to put in. It's our last part that we have not added. I went back and deleted that because this wasn't connected right to the right spot. And I'm still trying to decide how I want to resolve this edge loop. Okay, I think I fixed it. So I only have quads and no more tries. I really don't want tries. Once I started to use that multi-cut tool on this eye area, rather than continuing to work in edge loops, I had to make some adjustments. And it took me longer than it probably needed to. But what I really want to maintain is edge loops with quads. So this is how my eye is now shaped so that I maintain having only quad faces and no triangular faces, which will kind of disturb my smoothing process and other things down the road. So I'm looking for maybe a way to select all of these vertices. I'm going to try this tool here, average vertices. So rather than moving all those individual vertices, I can say edit mesh average vertices, and that will kind of reposition them all and round out the shape. That worked a bit. I do believe I want to still maybe make that back a bit. So now with those rounded, maybe I'll use my soft selection tool turned on and make sure I'm not constraining anywhere. And I'll use this to kind of just reposition some of this mesh. Like the eyes may be a bit more visible from the front. Okay, let's put the tail in and call it a day on this model.